Hey, before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to tell you, most people wouldn't believe. My name's Michael. I'm 32, ex-military, used to drive trucks across Nevada for work, and I never thought my life would turn into something out of a sci-fi movie. I'm telling this story because if I don't, I feel like I might lose my mind. It all started a few months ago when I was hauling a load near the outskirts of Area 51. I'd heard the rumors, obviously, the military secrets, the UFO sightings, but I always thought they were just stories. That night, the sky was unusually clear, the kind of starry sky that makes you forget everything else, but also makes shadows feel longer than they should. I remember the moment clearly. I'd stopped at a rest point to check my GPS, when out of nowhere, there was this low humming sound, like metal vibrating in a way nature doesn't allow. I froze, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Then I saw it, a bright, almost liquid-looking light hovering above the desert floor, about 100 meters from me. It didn't move like a helicopter, it didn't look like a drone. It hovered, pulsing, almost breathing. And then, it started moving toward me. I didn't want to drive off. Something in me told me that running would make it worse. But every instinct screamed at me to move. And then, the unimaginable happened. It was as if the night itself had warped around me. The stars blurred, the air thickened, and the next thing I knew, my truck wasn't on the road anymore. I was somewhere else. Inside the craft, I think. The walls were smooth, white, but not sterile, alive in a way I couldn't understand. Panels of light pulsed under my feet, and a voice, or maybe just a thought, entered my mind. "Do not be afraid," it said. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might shatter my ribs. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. The voice continued, "We are studying, not harming." And that's when I noticed them. Figures, tall, thin, almost transparent, moving without walking, gliding through the air. Their eyes, or what I thought were eyes, shone faintly, reflecting the pulsing lights of the walls. I wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything, but I was paralyzed, not by fear exactly, but by something deeper, a realization that I was no longer in control. They examined me, not with hands, but with a sort of scanning light that traced over my body. Images, memories, flashes of my past, my childhood, my military training, even things I had never told anyone, played across the walls in holographic form. And then came the question, in that same voice, why do humans fear what they do not understand? I couldn't answer. I wanted to tell them I didn't understand, but I didn't even understand myself at that moment. And then the worst part, the part that still haunts me, started. They began to show me Earth, but not as I knew it. Cities vanished under strange patterns. Oceans shifted. Skies cracked. It was a map, yes, but also a warning. This could happen, they said, if they continue to ignore what cannot be ignored. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. My mind was glued to the images. And that's when I realized something terrifying. The UFO hadn't just taken me. It had been watching me, my life, my choices, every little action. Every time I looked up at the sky and wondered, is there someone out there? They saw it. They always saw it. I didn't know if it was science, magic, or something completely beyond human comprehension. But I knew I had to survive, to get back, and to tell someone. Anyone. Then, as abruptly as it started, I was back in my truck, parked on the roadside, Nevada desert stretching endlessly around me. The hum was gone. The stars were normal again. But I wasn't. My hands shook, my mind raced, and I knew one thing. They hadn't finished with me. And that's when I saw it. A single, small light on the horizon, moving slowly toward me, relentless. And I understood. They were coming back. The light kept moving, slow but deliberate, like it was counting my fear. I tried starting the truck, but the engine wouldn't turn over. Panic hit me, the kind that makes your chest ache, and I realized I had no idea how far I was from civilization. The desert seemed endless. and that single, hovering dot of white-blue light was growing larger, almost hypnotic. I grabbed my phone, hoping to call someone, anyone, but the signal was gone. Not weak, gone. I had read about areas around Area 51 where signals mysteriously disappeared, but I'd never experienced it firsthand. Now I did. The light was close enough that I could see it wasn't just light. It was some kind of craft, low to the ground, moving with a precision that no human technology could match. It stopped about 20 meters from me, and then the impossible happened. A door, or maybe an opening, appeared. The light reshaped itself into a slit, revealing a corridor, sleek and metallic. My instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet felt cemented to the ground. And then the voice, calm, almost gentle, entered my mind again. Do not resist. You will learn. I don't know why I listened, but somehow I did. I stepped forward, and as soon as my foot touched the ramp, a force, not violent but undeniable, pulled me inside. The truck, the desert, even the stars above, all vanished behind me. Inside, the craft felt alive. The walls pulsed subtly, like it was breathing. I could feel vibrations through the floor, in sync with the voice that still echoed inside my head. Do not be afraid, it said again, but now there was a sense of expectation. I could sense that this wasn't random, that I hadn't stumbled into something by accident. They wanted me here. They wanted something from me, or maybe they wanted to show me something. Figures appeared, taller than before, gliding effortlessly. They didn't speak aloud, but their presence was overwhelming. One approached, and I could feel its focus on me, like it was reading my mind, cataloging every memory, every fear, every doubt. The next thing I knew, the craft shifted, and suddenly we weren't just in the desert. We were above it, hovering silently, and below me, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The borders of Area 51 stretched beneath us, but not as I had ever seen. There were structures I didn't recognize, fields of strange devices, and vehicles moving faster than anything human could operate. And then the craft moved again, faster than thought, passing over Nevada, Arizona, Utah. Cities blurred beneath me, but not just cities. The land itself looked manipulated, reshaped, and I realized I was being shown something. They weren't just observing, they were demonstrating. This is what could happen, the voice said. This is the trajectory of your species. My heart pounded, but more than fear, I felt responsibility. A human-sized holographic projection appeared, showing patterns, chains of cause and effect. Climate changes, wars, resource collapses. But intertwined were images I didn't understand. Strange symbols, energy flows, connections I couldn't decipher. The taller figure touched the air in front of me, and suddenly, I could see through their eyes, or through what they wanted me to see. I saw other craft, other humans, all linked in a network of observation, experimentation, and warning. I tried to speak, but my voice failed me again. And then, they did something I couldn't explain. They implanted a memory, or maybe a suggestion, that I now carry. A location, coordinates deep in the Nevada desert. A place they want me to find or to protect, I don't know. But it burned in my mind like a beacon. And then, as suddenly as it began, I was back in my truck again, engine running, phone still dead, desert quiet, stars normal. My hands shook, my legs felt weak, but the memory, the coordinates, the visions, they stayed. I drove without thinking, guided by the memory, feeling like every shadow, every wind gust, was being watched. And that's when I noticed it, small, silent, following me. Another light, not like before, more like a sentinel. They weren't done. They were still observing, and I knew whatever was waiting for me at those coordinates was going to change everything. The coordinates burned in my mind like a neon sign. I drove for hours, deeper into the desert, the road turning from asphalt to gravel to nothing at all. My headlights cut through the dark, but every so often, I'd glance in the rearview mirror and see that same dim, hovering light following me at a distance. Never closer, never gone. It wasn't chasing me. It was shepherding me. By dawn, the heat was already rising off the sand, and I found myself at the edge of a barren plateau with no road, no signs, no fences. Nothing but a flat expanse of rock and sand. My GPS was useless. It showed me sitting in blank space. But the coordinates in my head matched this place exactly. I stepped out of the truck, the silence so complete it rang in my ears. No birds, no wind, just stillness. And then, almost imperceptibly, the ground beneath my feet hummed. A circle of dust lifted, swirling like a miniature cyclone. And before I could move, the rock below me shifted. It wasn't rock at all. A hidden door or hatch slid open soundlessly, revealing a stairway of dimly glowing steps descending into darkness. I should have run. Any sane person would have. But there was something like gravity pulling me down. Curiosity, dread, and the voice still echoing faintly at the edges of my mind. Enter. Witness. The steps were cool to the touch, made of some metal I couldn't identify. As I descended, the temperature dropped, the air thick with a faint metallic taste. The stairway ended in a massive chamber, far larger than anything could be beneath a desert. It was like a hangar, but not human-made. Smooth, organic-looking walls curved seamlessly into the floor. And in the center, bathed in pale blue light, was something that made my heart seize. A craft, bigger than a commercial airliner but shaped like nothing on Earth, sat suspended above the ground by beams of light. Around it, dozens of figures moved, some human, some not. The humans wore dark uniforms with no insignia. The others were like the ones who had taken me. Tall, thin, eyes glowing faintly. But here, they weren't just observing. They were working with the humans. My mind reeled. Area 51 wasn't just about hiding alien tech. It was a joint operation. You were brought here to see, the voice said, clearer now, almost like a whisper in my ear. I ducked behind a low barrier, my instincts kicking in. Years in the military had taught me how to hide, how to observe without being seen. From my vantage point, I watched as one of the taller beings handed something, a device, glowing faintly, to a man in a dark suit. The man nodded, slipped it into a case and walked away. They weren't enemies. They were partners. That's when I felt it, their eyes on me. Not the humans, the beings. They knew I was there. One turned its head slowly, locking its gaze, or whatever passed for its gaze, on me. Do not hide, the voice said. Your presence is permitted. My heart pounded. Permitted? Why? I stood slowly, my legs trembling, and stepped into the open. The humans barely glanced at me, but the beings seemed expectant. One of them floated closer, not walked, floated, and stopped a few feet away. It extended a long, translucent hand. We chose you because you question, the voice said, though its mouth never moved. Because you see beyond the surface. My throat was dry. What is this place? I finally managed to whisper. The answer came like a rush of images, not words. Decades of secret cooperation, technology exchanges, hidden warnings, experiments not to harm but to prepare. Your kind is at a threshold, the voice said. We show what must be seen. Images of Earth flooded my mind again. Rising seas, collapsing ecosystems, conflicts spiraling out of control, but intertwined with them were solutions. Energy drawn from nothing, food from air, propulsion systems that bent space itself. We offer a choice, the voice said, but few can see it clearly. My knees almost buckled. This wasn't just about me. This was bigger, far bigger. Why me? I whispered. Why show me this? The being tilted its head, and for a moment, I felt something like a smile, though not on its face but in my mind. Because you still believe, it said. And then the chamber shook. Not a small tremor. A deep, resonant vibration that made the walls ripple like liquid. The humans shouted, rushing to consoles, alarms blaring. The craft in the center flickered, beams of light dimming. "It begins sooner than expected," the voice said, and I felt the first real surge of fear. Something was happening, something even they hadn't planned for. The vibration intensified, rattling the entire chamber, and I stumbled, barely keeping my balance. The tall being floated closer, its form pulsing like liquid glass. "It is time," it said, though not in words. I felt it in my mind, a command, a warning, a plea, all at once. The craft at the center of the room began to lift, slowly, impossibly, its beams of light slicing through the floor, walls, ceiling. I realized then that this was no longer just an observation or a demonstration. They were about to leave. Or maybe they were about to take something with them. The humans scrambled, shouting into headsets, tapping on consoles, but even they seemed powerless against the energy radiating from the alien craft. I stepped back, heart hammering, and then the being reached out, lightly touching my forehead. Not physically, it was like a thought, a projection. Images, memories, possibilities flooded my mind faster than I could comprehend. I saw myself, standing on a normal desert road, the stars above calm and ordinary. But I also saw a version of Earth transformed. Cities powered by clean, limitless energy, deserts blooming, oceans purified, humans working, not fighting. And then, a shadow, the consequences if nothing changed. Wars, famine, environmental collapse, a timeline I didn't want to see, but could not turn away from. The being withdrew its hand. "You have a choice," it said. My chest felt tight. "Stay silent, return, continue life as before, and the warning may fade into myth. Or act, spread what you have seen, and prepare." My mind screamed. How could I convince anyone? How could I even explain the beings, the craft, the visions without sounding insane? But the weight of the images, the responsibility, pressed on me like a stone. The craft began to hum, low and powerful, and I realized it was preparing to depart. The humans and aliens alike paused, almost ceremonial, as if this moment mattered more than anything else. Then, the tall being extended its hand toward me one last time. "Remember," it said, and in that instant, I felt a bond, memory, warning, knowledge, all transferred. I understood, even if partially, what I had witnessed and the enormity of the responsibility. And then I was outside, the desert dawn washing over me, my truck parked where I had left it, the stars fading with the sun. Nothing had changed on the surface, but everything inside me had. I looked around. The light, the craft, the beings gone. The desert was silent again, except for the wind and my own ragged breathing. I drove back toward civilization, the coordinates still fresh in my mind, a map of hidden truths I could not ignore. I knew the world would never believe me, not entirely. Friends, family, colleagues, they'd dismiss it as stress, hallucination, and overactive imagination. But I couldn't unsee what I had seen. The warning, the solutions, the choice, they were mine to carry. Days turned into weeks, and I started documenting everything. Locations, sequences, visions, sketches of technology, fragments of communication I barely understood. I avoided the media, avoided government inquiries, but always, at night, I felt them watching. Not threatening, not angry, but observant, expectant. The final lesson they had given me, the one I would never forget, echoed every day. Question, act, or be passive, but know that time flows differently than you think. You are a witness. You are a messenger. And that's when I realized something else, something terrifying and exhilarating at once. It wasn't just me. Others like me existed, scattered across the globe, people who had glimpsed the same reality, chosen to act or failed to act. And together, slowly, imperceptibly, the threads were connecting. Humanity was at a tipping point, and the choices of a few could ripple through millions. I am Michael. I was taken, I was shown, I was returned. And now I carry the weight of what was revealed, the knowledge of what could be. Every night I look at the stars, and I know they are still there, watching, waiting, guiding, and I will never look at the sky the same way again. And if you're listening to this, if you feel that pull, that curiosity, that quiet knowing, pay attention. Because the time may come when you, too, will be called to witness.